I am the best pirate of the seven seas. I want to explore all the seven seas. But where does this expression came from and why is it so important? Welcome to Ocean Science. Today we're diving into history to understand the meaning and evolution of the seven seas. Before talking about the seven seas, we need to clarify what the term sea means. Large body of water can be classified on lakes, seas and oceans. This depends on size, salinity and how they are connected with other water masses. So the oceans are the largest and the deepest bodies of salty water on Earth. The seas are generally smaller than the ocean and typically are partially covered by land. And the lakes are enclosed freshwater bodies surrounded completely by land. On the oceans we can have examples as the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean. On the seas we can have the Mediterranean Sea and also the Sargasso Sea. But here we don't have this land that covers this. This is a particular situation where the North Atlantic subtropical gyre closed this sea for the physics, for the currents that we have in this zone. And then in the lakes we can have the Lake Victoria and also the Caspian Sea. But in this case it's not a sea, it's a lake, because as we see this is surrounded by land. The names that they have can be confusing because they name like a sea, but it's a lake, and we put it a sea on the middle of the ocean. But we understand that in the majority of the case is the definition that I said before. And between ocean and lake we have also other classification as gulf, bays and straits. The concept of the seven seas is ancient, and it didn't always refer to the same seven bodies of water. We have one of the first reference on the Greek literature. Here the people often refers to these seas talking about the Aegean Sea, the Adriatic Sea, Mediterranean Sea, Black Sea, Red Sea, Caspian Sea and the Persian Gulf. At that time this was called seas, and they were the ones that used to create this concept of the seven seas that were in the same geographic region of Greece. Because of these seas were so important for the Greeks, for the economy, the wars, and how they interact with the rest of the world. When we arrive to the Middle Ages in Europe, the concept of the seven seas changes, because we are talking about more population and another geopolitical situation. We will consider the seven seas as the North Sea, Baltic Sea, Atlantic Ocean, Mediterranean Sea, Black Sea, Red Sea and Arabian Sea. So we see how in this case they expand this geographic part from Greece to whole Europe. So we are considering also the Atlantic Ocean as a sea, because they don't know that their other part of the world were more land. So in this case it's considered as a sea. We are also have interactions with the Arabic part. So we see how the Red Sea extends to the Arabian Sea. Then we arrive to the age of exploration. When the Europeans crossed the Atlantic Ocean, they discover a new water masses. So in the new era of exploration, we call the seven seas as the Arctic Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, Indian Ocean, Pacific Ocean, Mediterranean Sea, Caribbean Sea and the Gulf of Mexico. We see how the last on the list represents the continent of America. And here we have these important seas for that time. So today it's difficult to use this concept as we know all the globe. But the people without a scientific use of this term can divide the seven seas in the normal world as the North Atlantic Ocean, South Atlantic Ocean, North Pacific and South Pacific, the Indian Ocean, Arctic and Antarctic Ocean. This division continues to the way so-called seven seas, But there are no more seas, there are oceans, and as we know, there are one big ocean. They are not divided in this way. So the right way to classify them is in 5. So the Atlantic Ocean, Pacific, Indian, Arctic, and Antarctic. I have a whole video explaining why this is not a big ocean and they are divided in 5. So the phrase 7 seas reflected always the limits of human exploration, from the trader Greeks in the Mediterranean Sea until nowadays with the knowing of all the oceans. So the next time that you hear about 7 seas, you need to know in which time of history we are, so you can understand of what seas they are talking about. So that is all for today. Thank you for watching. If you're enjoying this type of content, subscribe to the channel and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.